Hello there, this is Chris Ramey with Global NLP Training, and I thought I would do a video outside today. It's absolutely a beautiful day. It's a little bit overcast. You can see a little bit of water in the background. And I'm here in beautiful Pismo Beach in California. And I thought what I would do is I'd talk to you a little bit about one aspect of our training, and that is specifically our training about emotional intelligence. Now, what you first need to know about emotional intelligence is that it really works well with NLP. Both of the concepts of emotional intelligence and NLP were created generally around the same time, back in the 60s and the 70s. Daniel Goleman was a writer at the New York Times, was a psychologist that had studied at Harvard, and what he did for emotional intelligence is he basically brought it out into the open. He published a terrific book called Emotional Intelligence, and he really brought it to a lot of people's attention, a lot of people's understanding. And one of the things that we do in our master practitioner training is we actually spend a good half of the day talking about what emotional intelligence is. Now, the concept of emotional intelligence is basically understanding four key concepts. Number one, what specific emotion are you feeling? And actually putting a name to it. Studies were done, and they found that individuals that went to go see a movie, went to see, for example, a horror movie, a suspense movie, and were distraught after seeing this movie, if they were able to name the specific emotion that they were feeling, it was much easier for them to allow that emotion to dissipate, and much easier for them to move on into feeling exactly what it is that they wanted to feel. So number one is understanding what emotion it is that you're feeling. Number two concept with emotional intelligence is controlling that emotion. So for example, if I know that I'm upset or I'm angry about something, that's number one. Number two is that how do I go about controlling it? And having the ability to understand that, okay, this is an emotion that I'm having, what do I want to do with it? And the way that we do that is by asking, do this emotion that I'm having, is it an emotion that I want to continue to have, or is it an emotion that doesn't serve me at this time? And based upon that decision, then take the next step, which is to either continue having it or to not continue having it. The third part of emotional intelligence is the concept of understanding other people's emotions. In the process of interacting with other people on a daily basis, we come upon different people and how they feel. If we are cognizant of what it is they're feeling, if we are aware of the impact our communication is having on somebody else, then we have the ability to understand them and understand where they're coming from. And then we have the decision to decide of whether or not we're contributing to something that is positive for them or that is not positive for them. And those are the four concepts of emotional intelligence. Now, what we do in our training with emotional intelligence is we take that a step further, and we start recognizing the different quadrants and the subquadrants that fall directly within emotional intelligence. I think that having the ability to understand yourself and controlling your emotions, understanding the emotion that other people are feeling, as well as helping them and you to get control of those emotions, it can be amazing and a very amazing resource and a tool that allows for much more flexibility, much more happiness, and much more joy. And that is really what it does come down to. There is something also, a concept called emotional hijacking. And what emotional hijacking is when an emotion overtakes us to a point that we can no longer rationally think. Now, this is actually created from a very evolutionary point of view, in that if, for example, I am on in a kitchen and I reach up my hand and I touch a burner on the stove, I don't want my intellectual mind to say, that's interesting. I smell something burning. I'm starting to feel something that's hot. I think it probably would be wise for me to move my hand away from the stove, and I think I'm going to do it right now. No, what I want is I want my reaction to be like, ah, that's hot, and to move my hand immediately so I do not continue to burn myself and damage my sense of touch, as an example. And that is a concept of emotional intelligence, and with hijacking, is that sometimes we get caught up in a pattern where we tend to react from an emotional standpoint without logically thinking. Now, in the example I just gave, as far as on the stove, I think it's a very, very useful technique, and I think it's very important that we honor that. But there's other times when, for example, someone says or does something to us, and we instantly have this emotional reaction. When let 5, 10, 15 minutes go by, we would have had a completely different reaction, or we would have the logic or the processing that allowed us to respond in a way that was much more appropriate given the situation, or much more appropriate for how we'd want to respond. And that's the concept with emotional hijacking. One of the things that I also like to think about is that if you think of the NLP model of communication, which is that there are 3 aspects that occur before we have an external behavior. Number 1 is it's a processing as far as what am I feeling? What is my emotional state, or what is my state? Basically. A second one is, what am I thinking? What is the cognitive process that is happening? What am I thinking about? A third is, what is my physiology? And when we talk about emotional intelligence, we're talking about a momentary pause before we have that reaction, before we have that external behavior. And what emotional intelligence does in the process of understanding it, understanding how it impacts every aspect of our life, by this understanding, we have the ability to give ourselves this amazing pause button. Our pause button before the action, before the reaction. And with this pause button, it allows us to have this wave of emotion and then, wait a minute, is this how I want it to come out? Is this the external behavior that I want? And it allows us the opportunity to have a different outcome. So what I would invite you to do is learn more about emotional intelligence. Come to our Master Practitioner course, our Master Prac course, or also we're going to be doing a new master class here at Global NLP Training. We're going to do an entire day of emotional intelligence. And it is going to be amazing. It's going to give you some resources. We're going to actually do a specific profile for every individual that's going to be part of the course, and would love to see you there. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I wish each one of you an incredibly amazing rest of the day, and enjoy the concept of emotional intelligence. This is Chris Ramey with Global NLP. Take care.